In case you are new to this channel, I usually start my analysis from the dollar index. Now, why do I do that? I do that simply because I trade mostly the majors, right? And the dollar index measures the strength or weakness of the United States dollar. So that's why I look at what is happening on the dollar index before I go to the majors, which includes the dollar pairs, right? To start placing trades. Now that said, let's dive into the analysis. Now I usually look at the monthly time frame first, then I streamline it all the way down to the lower time frames where we execute trades, right? Now, looking at the monthly time frame, those that has been on this channel for quite some time now can remember that I started shorting dollar from this zone to this zone, right? And I highlighted this zone as my areas of interest. Now, coming into this zone, we are beginning to see bullish push, right? And remember, we have about 4 days left to end this particular month, right? So with this bullish candle, I'm expecting dollar to close for the month strongly, right? So which means for the next couple of months, I'll be expecting a strong dollar, right? Now let's go to the weekly time frame, since we've seen what is happening on the monthly time frame. On the weekly time frame, we've seen 4 weeks of strong bullish price action, right? And I've pinpointed this, I've highlighted this on all of my videos. Go back into my videos and watch them, right? I started calling a bullish dollar after the close of this weekly candle. These are areas that I've been looking at for a very, very long time, right? And now price got there and we've actually bounced. We can see how we are closing for this week. You can see the strong statement bullish weekly candle, right? Now let's go to the daily time frame. Let's look at what we look like on the daily time frame. Before I go to the daily time frame, I'm actually expecting price to come into this level on the weekly time frame, right? Because previously price has reacted to this level and has also reacted to this level, right? So I'm expecting price to come into this level on the weekly time frame. Now let's go to the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, we broke out of this trend line, and since then I've been calling a bullish dollar, right? And that is all we've seen. Now this is the level I highlighted on the weekly time frame that I'm expecting price to come into. Let's go to the 4-hour time frame. On the 4-hour time frame, last week I was actually expecting price to come into this zone before we bounce off, but it didn't happen. However, we blasted all the way to the upside, and if I zoom backward, you can see that we've tested this area multiple times, looking left here, 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 and now we are back to that zone. At some point, the market has to pull back, right? So I'm expecting a pullback from this zone. So I'll be expecting price to pull back into this black line or into this trend line, right? Before we continue the bullish trend, because there's no way that price is going to keep moving in a straight line, whether upwards or downwards. It has to go into a moment of brief consolidation before trend continuation, right? So I'll be expecting price to either pull back into this black line or into this trend line. This black line is around, I think, 12953, right? I'm using the Dow Jones dollar index, by the way. You know, we have different types of dollar index, so I use the Dow Jones dollar index. So I'm expecting price to come into this level or into this trend line, right, to complete the third touch. Bottom line, I'm expecting a pullback, right? And when that happens, I expect price to keep pushing all the way into this zone. Now, 2 things can happen. We can either get that pullback all the way to this downside before we go, or we'll still break above. Then at that point, I'll be waiting for a retest definitely before I start looking for bullish opportunities on the dollar pairs, not on the dollar index. I don't trade the dollar index, all right? So I just use it to gauge my entries on the dollar pairs. Since we've taken a look at the dollar index, now let's go into the dollar, some of the dollar pairs, and see what we are going to be trading next week, right? But before I do that, don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you are new, and turn on the notification icon so that when we drop this type of videos, you'll be the first to be notified. Now let's dive into the analysis proper, starting with EURUSD. EURUSD, we had a very, very sweet week on the EURUSD. I mean, if you watched my last week's video and you didn't make money this week, it's probably because you are yet to subscribe. All right, so do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button now. I've been looking at this area. If you've been following my videos, you know I've been looking at this area from the monthly time frame. on the euro dollar, right? I see this place as some kind of a double top, and we broke the neckline all the way to the downside, went back and retested. Like I've said in my previous videos, we came back to retest this trend line, this resistance, and the 0.55 Fibonacci retracement level on the monthly time frame, which means a lot, right? And no doubt we saw this massive rejection, and it looks like we are on the road to closing the month with a solid bearish engulfing candle. And what does that tell you? That means we should be expecting continuous downfall of the US dollar, right? Now, if we come to the weekly time frames, we've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of bearish price action, right? Now, we broke above this trend line before, and I'm leaving this trend line here because I don't want to be caught unawares, right? So price may come into this trend line and then start bouncing upward, right? So I don't want to be caught unawares. So I'm leaving this trend line. I want to see how price reacts when we get back to this trend line, all right? However, I will still have a lot of space to the downside. But remember, on the monthly time frame, I'm expecting price to come all the way down to this zone. But since price doesn't move in a straight line, so anything can happen, can come here, bounce off before we now continue the bearish push to the downside. When we get there, we'll know what to do next, right? Let's go to the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, price has broken out of this trend line. I mentioned this, I think, couple of weeks ago, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, that price is going to keep pushing downwards, and that's all we've seen, right? Now, last week we closed, I think this was Friday's candle, last week Friday, yes, candle. Then for last week's video, I said we're going to close 1 day's candlestick inside this box, or 2 days, before we continue bearish. As a matter of fact, we only spent 1 day within this zone and collapsed for the whole of last week, right? Now, I'm expecting price to come into this zone and then give us some kind of a pullback before we drop all the way to this trend line here. Why am I looking at that trend line as a potential next target if we take out this zone? Is because price has tested that zone twice before, that trend line twice before. So I expect price to pull back, then come back into this trend line to either bounce upward and continue the bullish push to the upside, or if we break below, then we are coming all the way to this area here. Now let's go to the 4-hour time frame where we look for trading opportunities. Last week I talked about how I was expecting price to come into this trend line, reject it, and push all the way to the downside. I'm talking about last week's video now, and that was exactly what happened. We came into that trend line and we pushed all the way down. There was no losing trade. I mean, we're spot on this one, right? And price kept pushing down. So on the daily time frame, I actually highlighted this line, expecting price to come into this line, then we'll have some kind of a rejection back into this trend line or this trend line. Now, in case you're wondering where this trend line comes from, let me just zoom out properly so that you see. So I captured this zone and this zone. So I'll be expecting price to come into this trend line, or this one here, which I've captured here and here, right? So I'll be expecting price to give us some kind of a pullback into this area, for price to keep pushing lower. All right, so that's what I'll be expecting on the euro dollar. Now let's go to the NZDUSD. Now before I talk about the NZDUSD, of course, starting from the monthly time frame, if you forgot to hit the subscribe button, please do so now. So on the monthly time frame, as it stands right now, we have taken out 1 and 2 months of price action, but we've not ended the month, right? So let's wait till the end of the month to be sure that yes, we've actually taken out these 2 months of price action. But for next week, of course, I'll still be expecting price to do what? Collapse, even if we're expecting some kind of pullbacks. All right, now if you look at this area, price has taken out this zone, and this is the weekly time frame, by the way. On the NZDUSD, we've taken out this previous area here, right? And which means we've created a new lower low, right? So I'll be expecting some kind of a pullback at some point, but we can't spot the areas we'll be expecting those pullbacks to go into on the higher time frame. So we'll go to the lower time frame so that I'll show you where I'll be expecting our pullbacks to come into. Now let's go to a daily time frame. On the daily time frame, it's obvious that we have created a double top since we've broken out of the neckline. However, we've not properly broken out of the neckline. All right, so I think a little patience will still be necessary at this point. So for next week, I'll be expecting price to still take out this neckline properly. All right. Then when we take out the neckline, I'll be expecting price to still push all the way lower here, then give us some kind of a pullback before we blast all the way to the downside. All right. That's my prophecy on the NZDUSD. Now let's go to a 4-hour time frame. This is that neckline area on the daily time frame. It's wider here because we're on the smaller time frame, right? Now I'll still be expecting price to actually take out this place nicely, come into this zone, just like I've said on the daily time frame, before we now have a pullback into this zone, and then for price to push all the way to the downside with our target all the way below here. Now let's go to gold. On gold, I've been calling gold short, of course, on this channel if you've been following my previous videos. And you can see the monthly time frame is very, very massive. That means we had a very strong bearish February, right? And if we go to the weekly time frame, I think at the close of this weekly candlestick, I started shorting gold. All right, I mentioned it on all our videos. You can go back to last 3 weeks or 4 weeks video. You'll see after the close of this candlestick, I started shorting gold, right? And I looked at this area as our next level target, and you can see we've hit that target this week, and I even had to close my open position. We made lots of money. You can see from the screenshot right in front of you right now. And now I want to refine my targets. You know, previously I was looking at this zone, but now I want to refine it now that we are there. Why? I'll tell you. Price came into this zone, bounced off, blasted below, went back to retest it. We came back into that zone, stalled for a bit before blasting all the way to the upside. So I'm still expecting price to come into this zone before we see that pullback, right? If I go further left, you can see, if I capture further left, you can see how price has reacted to that zone historically, right? So I'll be expecting price to still come into this zone before we now see that pullback. Now, where should we be expecting that pullback to come into? I think we can't see it clearly on the daily time frame, but for the daily, I'll still be expecting price to actually come into this zone. But let's go to the 4-hour time frame. Let's see where, if we start seeing that pullback, where we should be expecting price to come into. So I'll just plot this trend line nicely so that you guys can see clearly. So when we come into this zone, I'll be expecting price to pull back into this trend line. Then we'll use our in-house rule-based strategy to time our entries where our stops should be and where our targets should be. Well, if you're wondering the in-house strategy I'm talking about, then you need to grab our Forex professional course. The link to the course is going to be in the description of this video below. Just go ahead and purchase the course. All right, now this is what I'm looking for on gold. So when we come into this zone, I'll be expecting that pullback into this trend line before the complete collapse. However, we may still break above this trend line. If that happens, I'm not interested in buying gold, and I'll advise you not to do the same, except if you're a professional scalper and you know your way around these stuff, then good luck. But for me, I'm not hitting the buy button on gold. The only opportunity I'll be looking for on gold right now are sells. All right, so that's that on gold. Now let's quickly look at GBPUSD. I think this will be the last pair I'll be talking about in today's or in this week's video. The other pairs I will not be touching in this video will be posted on the Telegram channel, right? So if you are not on the Telegram channel, the link is also in the description of this video below. Just go ahead and hit that link, then just join our Telegram community. Amazing stuff happens there. Anyways, on GBPUSD, I've been pointing this for like the past 3-4 weeks now that I'm bearish, right? Now, just like EURUSD, we had a double top here, broke below the neckline. Now it looks like we came back into that resistance zone, which happens to be the neckline, which also confluences with the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement level, right? And no wonder we saw this massive rejection. I mean, look at this big, bold, monthly bearish candle staring right at us, right? Now, if we go to the weekly time frame, on the weekly time frame, we are still not at the area that I am comfortable with, but however, we broke below this line here, which is 1.19704. Now you'll be wondering what that line is doing there. If I zoom back into historical price action, you'll see that price has rejected that zone significantly in the past, right? So that's why that zone is an interesting zone for me. And now that we've broken below it, though as at the time of recording this video, we are 2 hours away from market close for the week, right? So I don't know if we are going to go back above here and close above here, but I strongly believe we are going to close below that line. All right, and if that happens, then for next week I'll still expect price to push all the way to this black line, then maybe before we see our pullback and then the total collapse of GBPUSD to the downside. Because looking left, I don't see anything that is going to hold or restrict dollar from coming all the way to this zone if we take out this black line here, right? But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go to the smaller time frame. Let's look for immediate trading opportunity. Now you can see we are creating a double top also on GBPUSD, but we are yet to take out the neckline. So patience is required for that to happen. However, for next week, I'll still be expecting price to come into the zone that I just mentioned when we're on the weekly time frame. Now let's go to the 4-hour time frame. Sorry, let me just delete this. In last week's video, remember I actually pinpointed, I highlighted this area that I'll be expecting GBP to come into this area for last week before we start selling GBPUSD, right? And that was exactly what happened, just like the other pairs I've mentioned earlier. So price came into this level and price rejected it significantly and we started collapsing all the way to the downside. So for next week, I'm still expecting GBPUSD to keep collapsing to the downside, maybe to come into this zone, creating a new lower low before we see a pullback into this zone, then before the continuous collapse of GBPUSD. And by the way, remember next week we'll be heading into March, and remember every first Friday of every new month is NFP. So next week is NFP week. So let's see what happens. I'll be expecting a slow week. Let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and probably Thursday will be probably slow. So we may see all the pullbacks we've been looking for. Then maybe on Friday towards the NFP, we'll see all the volatility that we would like to see. But well, like I said, join the Telegram community so that you keep in touch with my latest updates and all. And don't forget to do yourself a favor, purchase the Forex Professional course and change your trading career forever. It's only $85 by the way, so just do yourself a favor by getting that course because it's definitely going to help you. So with that, we've come to the end of today's video. Remember, if you've not hit the subscribe button, do so now so that you don't miss any of our future videos. Thanks for staying to the end of this video. I love you guys and I wish you a successful trading week. Bye.